Yep. All right. We're rolling.
All right.
Yeah. So
All right, let's get this thing going.
yeah. So
Uh,
hello. Welcome to
Hello.
the podcast, Future for Thought, first episode.
First episode, pilot.
Yeah, pilot episode. Feels good. um,
Feels good, man.
yeah.
Glad to
So
be here.
yeah, me too.
And
I'd
welcome
say.
everyone who's joined in, came in to listen to our little podcast over here.
Mm-hmm. All right. I think we should start off with introductions. I'm Zooey, 16, California. Interests include VR, the general future, AI, business, the lot.
That's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, you can cast a wide net.
And I'm Jesse, uh, 22, Indonesia. My interests include the future mostly, uh, money.
That's a good one.
Okay, games, actual interest, games, and mostly technology, like the development of new technology, VR, AR, uh,
XR,
micro technology, macro technology. I don't know what it's called, but also
microtech.
the recently uh, highly developed rocket technology as well
Mm, very nice. Yeah.
to the moon,
Mm-hmm. To Mars, hopefully,
to Mars
eventually.
now.
2024 or 5, I believe, is when they planned it.
Hmm.
All right. So, next question, next thing on the agenda. What is Future for Thought about? What's it all about?
So I see this as a means for us both, younger generations, to express our thoughts, uh, to have a way, uh, a place to look into the future, because most of our time when we're young, we're just looking at right now, then and there,
Mm-hmm.
thinking about what we should get right now, But since we're getting older and older, we're becoming adults. Uh, we're starting to think about the future. We're starting to create this, uh, to form this view of the future, that we need something,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
that there should be a an endpoint in our lives. We start to become aware of that. So, future for thought is a way for us to have a new, fresh perspective of the future, because we've seen people in the past form thoughts, form an image of the future, and some of them are
Some are good,
accurate,
some
some
are
of them
bad.
are not. And I think we should do that uh, as well, and
Mm-hmm.
see maybe in the future which parts of what we're thinking now is wrong and which ones are right.
Always
And that
good
would
to know.
be interesting.
Yeah. Uh, I feel Future for Thought is sort of like both a way to connect and like exchange ideas and thoughts. Like we have a
Mm.
millennial and a Gen Zer on one podcast. Um,
I'm
I,
I'm technically a Gen Z.
oh, well, I think Gen Z was like 2000. Or sorry, no, millennials are like 19 something to 2000, if I'm not mistaken. I could be
True,
wrong,
true.
but we'll just say for the sake of it. But I was gonna say, future thoughts.
Generational things are weird.
Yeah, yeah. Speaking of which, like, I always think what the next generation or the generation after the next is gonna like be like, because they'll grow up
Mm.
with VR and AR. Like, my generation grew up with cell phones. Yours grew up with the internet. Next generation could grow up with VR. Generation after that, robots or something. Um,
Oh,
I mean that's just
robot
a
nanny.
exactly. Well, those are already things for the elderly in Asia, but we don't talk about that. They're fairly rough around the edges. But say I'd say back to the topic. I'd say future of thought is like just a way to throw ideas out there, pin them against the wall and discuss.
Mm.
Hmm. All right. Let's see. Oh yeah, and length of each episode. What would we usually shoot for?
Mm, I think there will be episodes where our topics would be very short,
Yeah,
but generally speaking, about 45 minutes to 1 hour,
sounds like a plan.
hopefully,
Yeah, and then
because there's a lot of things to digest
quite a
about the
few,
future.
quite a few.
Oop, got to
I'd
mute that.
say. Uh, first real meat question. Stance on the future. What would you say your stance on the future is?
My stance for the future. Uh, so I stand in the most realistic way. I tend to be cautious on how we step forward because sometimes we start making these amazing technologies, but then we forgot uh, our greatest enemy, ourselves.
Ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah, and human beings are the most unpredictable beings because sometimes great technologies can be misused into something else, to something that is either used selfishly or used horribly,
We
and
are.
it would cause a lot of things, a lot of bad things to happen. With but if we tread into the future carefully, uh, I think we can see a lot of progress. We can see a lot of great things come to be uh, in progressing our civilization forward into something better.
Mhm. Yeah, I think humans are sometimes a little too curious for their own good, but it is inevitable. So I'd say my stance on the future is hopeful and I'm very optimistic, but there needs to be a line that's drawn. Because if it's not
Mm.
drawn beforehand, it's going to be too late to go back. It's like, um, say, humanity's a train, and then you're just building tracks as it's going forward. You can't go back. That's not how it works. It's constantly in motion. So, say, say one of your, I'll say like a hope and a fear of what could go wrong and what could go right for the future. Just to dabble in it.
Okay, a hope and a fear. So I hoped that one day uh, we finally actually become a Type 1 civilization
Hmm.
and we can fully harness everything in this planet and manage it, manage every single resource on this planet uh, without any limitations. But my fear is that we become, because of that, because we became a fully full blown civilization, a Type 1 civilization, in the what was that scale? The civilization scale by that person.
Uh,
Uh,
Not
anyways,
sure. Yeah.
my fear is that we become arrogant. We forget ourselves that we came from a really weak species compared to others, compared to the
Hmm.
other animals.
I believe it
We
was.
biggest strength is our intellect, is our intelligence.
Yeah.
The fact that we become this big of a species is because of that. You know, we are not really that strong compared to bears, compared to other
Or a
things.
hippo, or a rhino, or a giraffe, or an
Mm.
elephant, or
We can easily get
oh,
crushed.
any poisonous insect ever is a tricky.
That too.
Yeah. The reason we actually are the dominant species on this planet is because of a completely random genetic mutation that happened in one of our ape ancestors. Then, over the course of millions and millions of years of evolution, that eventually developed into what we have now, which is our brains. And it's why we can come out of a womb when we're given birth and stand up on our hind legs immediately like a giraffe. Because of our brains,
Hmm.
they're too big. So that's why we need to be nurtured and health up to like our teenager years.
So a second hope, but I guess
Hmm.
kind of a wish, is that human beings realize that we are one of the weakest species, and our greatest strength is in each other, in helping each other.
Yeah, like we.
Because I remember someone said, someone asked, what is a civilization? And this, I think anthropologist, I think, said that it wasn't the typewriter, it wasn't the car, it wasn't the fire that started human civilization. It was the ability to heal wounds. The fact that someone stopped and waited for that person, protected them for time to heal that for that wound to heal. That's the start of a civilization. That's the sign of a civilization. And I hope that that kept going. I hope that never stopped. That
Yeah.
people didn't become selfish and arrogant.
To build off of that, I'd say it started with the healing, and then it evolved into the instead of waiting for you to heal, why don't you or someone figured out, hey, I could plant these crops and they grow, and then I don't need to go out and forage for food. I can have people stay here and wait and tend to those crops and make bread and such. And then I can go out and hunt, but a lot less. So then you can grow the population steadily, and humans, I believe there's only three species on the planet that are able to coexist in groups larger than 100. I believe it was water buffalo, some species of fish, bees, and humans.
Mhm.
Though I might be wrong because some insects, but we'll ignore those for that's
Also
for the
ants.
sake.
The
Yeah,
ants
I was
are.
gonna say ants, but like for just for insects,
Mm.
we'll save cross. But I mean, okay, mammals. Mammals wise, it's just humans and water buffalo. And one of the reasons for humans is, again, we decided to stop, realize running around eating as many calories as I burn is not very efficient. Took us a couple million years, but we realized this and we thought, sit down, wait, grow some crops, and that was the beginning of true civilization, where like populations began growing above 100 or so. So,
Then other things came to be. New
yeah,
technology, new
and the
things
the rest
to
is
create.
literal history.
Hmm.
About 10,000 to 15,000 if you want to be very generous, is how long civilization has existed. And then if
Hmm.
you think in the grand scope of things, that's about,
That's not very.
yeah, I
That's
was about
not
to
a
say
lot of time.
Earth has been around for some number billion years, and then life's existed for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of years, if not billions. And then
Mhm.
you have us humans, 7 or 8 million, and then civilization, tiny little speck, 10,000 give or take. And then here's the craziest fact is like within the past 100, we've outpaced and done more in the past 100 than the past 10,000. Like those 100 years of industrialization and growth and technology, all of that is more, and is growing quite fast. Like we'll take the
We're not even done yet,
yeah, no, exactly. We're
and I
starting.
don't think we will ever be done.
No, we're starting to creep up on the global limit right now. If nothing changes, our global limit is around 9 to 10 billion before we start facing issues, like housing issues
That's
and
where the rockets come in.
the problem with the rockets though is like that may only be for the planet to reach like the max. That may only be say I'll be generous and say like 40, 50 years. And then I would imagine even if we got the first like manned mission to Mars in the next, we'll say, be very generous and say decade, but I think it'll be sooner personally. We'll say within the next decade, Within those 40 years, I don't see mass manned missions like hundreds of thousands or millions or like to the
Oh
point
no.
where it's useful enough where it does a difference. I don't see that happening at all. And that's where the issue comes in. Like if there's no change, we'll hit
Okay,
global
we'll talk more
capacity.
about this in
Yeah,
another
right.
episode. Let's say call it human colonization in our solar system.
Human colonization. I'll write that down. My bad. We
And
got we're
but I
gonna
haven't
this is gonna
heard
happen
from
a
you
lot.
what your hopes and fears
Right,
are for the
right.
future.
So a hope for me, a hope would be more people, more of the youth becoming educated in these
Mm.
subjects. I hope because the current almost any politician now it does not think of the future. They're thinking until the next presidential cycle, or they're thinking when's the next big event or when's the next big fiasco going to happen that I have to cover up, or who do I have to kill to silence for a dictatorship instead of a democracy. But like right now, all America is doing is thinking what's going to happen in the next 2 years with the Senate, what's going to happen in the next 4 years with the presidency. We're only thinking in 4 year segments. And that is the inherent downfall of modern democracy at the moment. Whereas if you take a country like China, they're able to think generations and decades ahead of us. They have been already, which is another episode actually, is just China and the US, their future. That's a big one. But I feel educating the youth is the key to an actual future because we're going to have to live on this planet for the next 30, 40 years with the people who are not going to believe in this technology or the people who don't understand it. Like the baby boomers or those who are in their 50s and 60s right now, like the early retirees. We're going to have to live with them for a long time, or most politicians. The thing with educating the youth today is that it not only makes them less susceptible to the manipulation that they'll be given later on in life with things like the media or social applications and the groups they're
Mm.
around. It'll be harder to do that. And I get the most important thing, they'll have free thought. They'll think for themselves instead of with the group. Like for me, in order for me, like what I had to start doing to start thinking like this was completely separate myself from others and think and read and research and explore on my own. And that's when I realized a herd mentality is the one that gets you hurt the most, the least often, but you're wrong the most, or you're wrong the largest amount of times. Because if you go with the herd,
Hmm.
you don't have any say. You have very little say. If you go on your own,
Ah,
the only say is your own. And if you research enough and if you feel confident enough, you'll be correct. As opposed to just believing in, say, a teacher or a parent, which they could also be wrong.
that's why we have peer review.
Yes, other
We keep
people's input.
reviewing each other
Hmm.
and correcting each other.
Yeah,
That's why we need an open mind,
that's why I'm
which not
fairly.
a lot of people have.
It is heart-wrenching how few people think this way. Like, in my lifetime, I might have only ever met two others aside from you who have thought this way, who are around my age. And then I might have met, say, like a dozen adults out of thousands or hundreds that think this way as well. It is a finite, finite thing to see someone who thinks freely or effectively as this. And that's a fear of mine, or that's a hope for mine is education. A fear of mine is that it doesn't happen. Like my general fear is that we continue along this path, like this political path, this economic path, which is a whole nother episode again, the current economic situation. But I feel lack of education is what is going to eventually entirely doom this country and this world.
Or the entire earth.
Yeah, world. Because I mean, I kind of want to get into this on the first episode, just so there's something out there. But automation is going to eclipse. 85% of jobs in the next 30 years.
Oh yes.
That's my guess. And so here's where that gets scary though, is currently about the 85% of manual jobs, like labor jobs, like for instance, factories, truck drivers, food workers, taxi drivers, and like ride sharing or Uber Eats and so all of that can be replaced and done dozens of times better by a robot or by automation or AI. And all of these people, all those employees, a good 90% of them, if not more, are high school educated, mid 40s for like the truck drivers and the factory workers, uh, don't have any interest or are unable to be re-educated, which has been attempted and failed to re-educate like um, people on say AI and technologies. That has failed, and it is an inherent issue where we'd have like a permanent a permanent demographic in America that is unemployable.
Mm.
That is the inherent issue. And that again, that's the fear of my like lack of education or lack of information distribution. That's what it's going to end up with this generation. This generation will end up like that without any possibility for a job. So that is my fear.
Yeah, that is that is quite a big fear, and I understand that fear because uh, I major in computer science,
Hmm.
and I've seen a lot of jobs that can be automated, like a lot of them. Once you
Yeah.
get into
Yeah.
programming and you like start to understand how AI works, it's actually scary.
Yeah. I
But
took a
I don't think it will happen immediately. A lot of people estimate about 10 years, right?
no, I would disagree.
Hmm?
I would say to have we'll give well again I'll be generous just so it's not like frightening, but like 65% of all manual jobs will be gone in the next 3 decades.
Three
Easily.
decades.
Easily. 30 years it'll be done. Like there's no way around that. It could be
Yeah,
higher,
that's
it
yeah.
could be much higher, but there's no doubt in my mind that will happen. Because
And not just manual jobs, but a lot of white collar jobs are
yes,
going to be gone.
I was just about to say that. A big argument people have is like, okay, well, forget the blue collar work. I'll just go into white collar. White collar's at risk too. There was this brilliant website called Will Robots Take My Job, created by two Oxford graduates. And basically what they did is they researched and they took in all this like data of like future technologies, what's going on, what's the general trend, and then they estimate what's the likelihood of one's job being replaced within the next, I think it was half century. And then if you look at like the statistics, it's pretty funny. Like, because if it's like above 90%, it says like you are doomed or like the robots are watching. But I think like general jobs like cashiers or factory workers and like taxi drivers, all in the 90s or high 80s. That's
Yeah.
all of them. And then like you get into the smaller ones like I think it was a nail technician or some or like a business manager is
Ah, all right.
25%. Like that's scary. 'Cause like would you imagine you have a 1 in 4 chance to one day be overseen by a robot or an AI. To some people, they are terrified. To me, I see it as it'll be so well integrated over the course of so many years, you won't see a change. It'll be natural.
Yeah, because we've seen this happen before
With the iPhone.
with the integration of automobiles,
hmm
the integration of computers. Actually, we thought typewriters will be out of jobs.
hmm
Uh, we thought the carriage,
I'm gonna say
the
there's a reason you
yeah,
only see
people
horse
thought,
carriages
oh
in New
no,
York.
we're gonna lose a lot of jobs because of
Yeah.
these new technologies, but no, unemployment rates since then has actually been lower.
Yeah. Well, so
I think
there's a
back
reason for
then
that.
it
There's a
was
reason
like
for that.
early 1900s,
Hmm.
was it?
Yeah, so the early 1900s when automobiles became financially viable and mass produced. But the reason why jobs went up was because they needed people in factories and not
Mm-hmm.
driving carriages. The inherent issue in today's economy is the simple fact that automation eliminates the need for a human entirely. Because like before in a factory in 19 say 20, you're working for Ford and you're churning out cars. There's no point where a human doesn't touch every single piece of that car. Now,
True.
a car like say a Tesla takes about 3 hours to make, and it's about 70 to 60%
80% of
machine
it
made,
is done by
right? Yeah,
robots.
yeah. There's very like the only things humans really do are like difficult things like plugging stuff in or taking things out, like cables and such.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean,
Interior.
yeah, it, it's an inherent like curse of humanity is automation and how we're constantly trying to improve for the stockholders, improve our profit margins, improve our speed and our products, but no one stops to ask, would this eliminate this section of the management workforce? Or would this eliminate the need for this supplier, which we can let go and then jeopardize their entire business? No, because the issue with globalization and with the world economy now is it relies solely on the shareholder of a company. It relies on people like you and me who go out and buy a share of Tesla stock or buy a share of Amazon stock. We expect that money to grow. It is an expectation that a company has to uphold. If you don't grow your profits, everyone loses money. So a company's main drive is not serving the customer, it's getting the best reviews on paper. Customers can be part
Mm.
of it. Like you need customers to grow your business. That's just an inherent thing. But if you get to a point like Amazon, Disney, or Apple, where you're literally too big to fail, I would argue, it gets to a point where you no longer have to try, and all you can need to focus on is profits. Next quarter,
Mm.
how much growth? Like, I think,
But that kind of limits their growth as well.
yeah, it
There's
inherently
nothing new that
it's
they
a
can create.
it's a double-edged blade because with Amazon, what they end up doing is replace more people at our fulfillment centers with giant Roombas that still do 90% of the work. And it's like eliminate more employees, eliminate more insurance needs, more healthcare needs, more salaries needs, and we're fine. We're golden. We'll continue growth. And that's an issue. That is an inherent flaw in today's economy is it relies too much on the shareholder, not the individual product.
All right. So I guess we'll discuss about automation and jobs in the well, literally in the future. Hey.
Yeah. Hey.
But uh, for now, I think we've actually got everything out.
Mm-hmm.
It's been only like what, half an hour?
Believe a good 28 minutes. Yeah.
28 minutes. Yeah, it's almost half an hour.
I have a few other topics we can touch on just to meet that 45-minute deadline if you'd like. Um,
But we don't have to. This is like our first episode, but
True. Well, this is just like my general
we
curiosity
just
about you.
want to like have an opening, have a
Yeah.
what this is gonna be like.
Hmm.
And I think we have a pretty good picture of it.
Yeah.
We have a pretty good image of how this is going to go.
Hmm.
Nah, I really hope everyone enjoyed.
Yeah. I'll have to
I
work
hope everyone
on
enjoyed
my quality for
us
next
sharing our
episode, but
thoughts. Ah,
yeah.
that
Thank
can be
you.
easily fixed.
Thank you for tuning into Future for Thought pilot episode.
Hey,
Yeah.
pilot episode.
Yeah.
More episodes coming soon.
Stoked.
All
All right. Peace out.
right.